Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to Communication Skills class. I am your tutor Anila Nosheen and I'll be taking care of your Communication Skills course. In this course, we will make sure that how you are going to improve your communication skills. When I say the word communication, what comes in your mind? Yes, communication has something to do with communicating with people. So communication involves the sender and the receiver. It has to have people interacting with each other. So in this course, we will see that how people interact with each other once they are speaking to each other, once they are sending material. While you send messages to each other every day, while you send messages and while you write down on the piece of paper, sending letters, sending messages, sending text messages, speaking to the people, you watch television on the screen, you listen to the newscasters, you watch dramas. So all of this is what you call communication, and we are going to see that how you can actually polish and how you can actually improve your communication skills and how you can actually jump into the business life and how you can actually apply these communication skills into your practical life. So to begin with, let's quickly see that what exactly we are going to do today. I'll give you the brief introduction of communication skills and what we are going to do today in the classroom. So first of all, we will discuss that what is communication. We will thoroughly see that what exactly and how do you define communication skills. We will see the definition of communication skills and how dictionary actually defines the communication process. Then we will see that how do we communicate and what exactly is the channel and what exactly is the process of communication. Then we will move on to the skill. We will discuss on the broader level, we will discuss what is a skill, and then we will move on to that what are those language skills in the language that we require to study in this semester. We will talk about the language skills, the 4 language skills that you know of. I'll make sure that you get to know of them in detail. Then we will also discuss the types of communication, the different types of communication. We will see that how different categories of communication are different from one another. So these are some types like verbal and non-verbal communication. That one we are going to discuss in detail. We will also study the styles of communication. Some people you will find once they are communicating, they are very aggressive. You will find some people once they are communicating, you will find them they are very submissive and stuff like that. So this is how we will see some categories of styles of communication. We will also discuss the communication cycle. There is a proper cycle and there is a proper process of communication that we are also going to discuss in today's lecture. And then we will also discuss that how efficiently and how effectively one is required to communicate in the workplace. So this is what is the target of today's presentation. Today's lecture rather. So we will make sure that you are going to learn about all these things that I am showing you on the slide. To begin with, let's quickly first of all discuss that what is communication. A dictionary defines communication as a process. Now let's quickly underline these important words so that you have an idea that what exactly is communication. Now dictionary defines communication as a process. Now this process has step number 1, it has step number 2, it has step number 3, 4 and 5. That one we are going to discuss. This is why we call communication a process or a cycle. There has to be one channel from where the message is coming. Like there must be a sender who is sending the message, and the sender is sending the message to someone. Now this someone is going to be the receiver who is going to receive the message. So this sender and this receiver are actually communicating with each other. Now once this sender will send a message to a receiver, this receiver will reply back to the sender. Now message is going and the feedback is coming back from the receiver. What is it? This is a channel. This is a process. So this is how we call communication, or dictionary defines communication as a process where you have the continuous flow of thoughts coming from one area to the other. So the first thing that we have discussed is communication as a process by which information is exchanged. Now what is this sender and what is this receiver trying to do? This sender is actually sending the information to the receiver. Now what is sender sending? That's some kind of the information, or that's some kind of a message that the sender is sending to the receiver. The receiver is listening to that information or a message, and then that receiver will reply back to the sender and this channel will complete. between individuals through a common system of symbols. Now note it down, this is symbols, signs and behaviors. Now there are three things which are categorized in communication definition. Now the sender is sending message to the receiver, maybe through symbols, maybe through signs, or maybe through behaviors. Now the way you are behaving, if you are annoyed at someone, if you are very happy with someone, your facial expressions, your behavior, the way you are standing, the way you are sitting, everything will reveal that what exactly you are trying to communicate. You are angry at someone and you don't want to talk. What would you do? You will lay down, maybe you would step back, maybe you would move ahead and don't by ignoring that person or not looking at that person. So this is how this becomes your behavior of communicating with that person or that very individual whom you don't want to communicate. If you are very happy with someone, automatically your behavior, the way you are, patting them on their shoulders sometimes, you are holding their hands. So this is how your behaviors will automatically tell them that you are very happy with them. And same goes with every situation. You will also observe your behaviors once you are communicating with different kinds of people. Then you have different signs and then you have different symbols. Now signs are something which are there in your language. Now if you take one language, that is English language, as particularly we are talking about the English communication process. Now see that in English language you have some alphabets. You have those alphabets are your letters, A, B, C, D. All of them, they carry one shape. Like if you write down A as this one, B as this, C as this. So you see all of them, they carry their own shapes and they vary from one shape to the other. So the shape carries one sound or one particular thing that is attached to it. So this is one sign of communicating. This is sign language that one communicates from. Another sign language, if you talk about the other sign language, you would have seen outside the toilets a female figure and then a male figure. So male figure would automatically tell you that this is a male toilet, and a female figure will automatically tell you that this is a female toilet. Same goes with your traffic signals. Red indicates that you should stop, it's dangerous to move. Then you have yellow light that indicates that you should start up and you should move on. And then a green light which indicates that you can go without any hesitation or without any fear. So these are all what? These are all signs that indicate that you can actually, you can stick to them, and they have become, kind of universal signs which are available and which can be observed or which can be seen by many different people. The third category through which we can communicate is your symbols. Now symbols can be, now there are a few things which are symbolic, like colors can be symbolic, any bird can be symbolic, like pigeon is the symbol of peace. And then there are some colors which symbolize different things, like red color, it symbolizes danger, and in some countries it symbolizes love. And then there are other few things which symbolize different kind of aspects in different ways. Like if you take example of Pakistani flag, belong to Pakistan, and we see that on Pakistan flag you have two colors, one is green and the other one is white. Now that white portion has something to do with elaborating or explaining the Muslim minority, non-Muslim minority, and then that green portion has something to do with explaining the Muslim majority in the country. So these two colors are actually the symbols of the Muslim and non-Muslim minorities and majorities. So I hope that you have thoroughly understood the definition of communication, which is basically a process of sharing or exchanging the information between the two individuals, that is your sender and that can be your receiver. Now there can be two individuals or there can be more than two individuals who are actually communicating and who are actually conveying their thoughts to one another. Okay, so this is how the variety, like for example, if the teacher is teaching in the classroom and there are a lot of students who are sitting and they are looking at the teacher and they are listening to her or him, so it makes a one-sided, that's kind of, you know, one speaker but a lot of audiences, and there can be a lot of audiences who are actually talking to one speaker. So this is how the number of individuals or the number of speakers in the communication process may vary from situation to situation. There can also be one-sided communication, like for example, you are listening to the television or you are listening to the newscaster sitting on the television screen. Now if I say that she won't communicate with you, I mean, for example, she is continuously on the screen and telling you the news of the day, but basically she is not communicating with you. That's one-sided cycle because you cannot reply or you cannot give your feedback. This is one category, or this is one-sided communication, that one we are also going to discuss once we are going to talk about the communication cycle in detail. So I hope that you have learnt about the communication definition. So, communication is the activity of conveying information. So, basically we define communication as an activity of conveying information and of exchanging the information between the individuals. Now, if you see, communication has been derived from the Latin word communis. Now, this communis actually means to share. Now, what exactly you are sharing? You are actually sharing your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, your emotions, or one time you are also exchanging your information with one another. That is one message. That can be the representation of your feelings, that can be the representation of your emotions, behavior, or anything like that. What basically communication requires is a sender, a message, and an intended recipient. Now, there is a sender, there is an intended recipient, the one who is receiver and who is receiving the message. Now, this sender is sending message to the receiver and this receiver is all attentive. It means that that receiver is listening to that presenter or that sender very carefully. So this is how, and this is what you explain communication as, and this is what the communication cycle basically requires. Now, if you see on the slide, communication basically is the combination of 3 V's. Now, if you are being asked that what are these 3 V's, you may write it like this. Now, 3 V's are verbal, vocal, and visual. Now, these 3 categories are to do with, and they are actually the combination of your communication in everyday life. Your verbal message has something to do with the message that we deliver, that can be spoken, that can be written, or that is being interpreted and that is being, understood by the next person carefully. So that can be in the form of spoken language, or that can be written version also. Maybe you are talking to someone, so it becomes your spoken expression, or maybe you are actually taking care of, or you are actually talking to the person, or you are actually sending message to the next person, so this will become your verbal message, that is through your verbal expression. Vocal has something to do with the voice that we convey. So it is not about the message that you are saying, it is about how you are actually conveying the message. I am happy, I am very happy. Now you see, so this is how the way you are saying things is going to make a lot of difference. I'm tired, I'm really very tired. Okay, so this is how the way you say things is going to make a lot of difference. We will also see some examples in the upcoming slides that how you can communicate one line in different ways. Then there is one third V, that is your visual, that has something to do with your body language, the way you are standing, the way you move your hands, the way your facial expressions change. So all of these things, they fall under the heading of your visuals of your communication. So there are 3 V's that we have discussed in communication or under communication. Your communication is the process of 3 V's, that is verbal, vocal, and visual. So now see that how exactly do you communicate and how exactly do we communicate to each other. Communication basically don't fall in isolation. It does not occur in isolation. You have to have a proper channel, and you have to have that proper staircase through which you understand that how exactly you are communicating. Now, basically communication revolves around your skills. That are your skills that are related to your language skills. To understand those language skills, it's good that we understand that what exactly is a skill. Now, if you see the definition of a skill, skill is basically defined as a learned power of doing something competently. Now, this is not something that is there inborn or innate. Skill is something that is the learned power. You learn these skills. Like, for example, you go to the art museum, you go to the art university. You had this talent of painting something, or you were good at drawing, but your mother, she sent you to the art school, and there you learned the different, while painting with different mediums of art. Now, once you have learned that ability of painting with oil paints, with painting with, watercolors, and then making sculptures, and then carvings and all that, so you became a skilled painter. So this is what is the difference between, like, you were an inborn artist, the one who had this talent of painting something, but now you have become one skilled painter, the one who has got all the skills to work on them. So you have, in other words, you have learned that power of painting with different mediums, of doing something competently. Now that you knew that how to actually paint something, now you are competent enough of painting in different mediums. It is developed or aptitude or ability. So that has become your ability and your aptitude of doing something in different ways. Same goes with your language. Language basically is the structure where you learn different sounds and different words, and then you move on to applying those words in different situations. Different languages at the same time. That has something to do with your innate ability of learning the sounds, learning the words, and then your skill will help you writing down in different languages, maybe reading from different languages and stuff like that. So once we talk about particularly communication skills, maybe you have read and I'm sure that you are aware of that how to pronounce different words, how to read different words, how to actually develop sentences, and then you must know that you would know that how actually you can read from the newspaper, how you can listen to different people. But once you will be actually applying all those techniques which are there to learn English language communication skills, to become a competent writer of English, a competent listener of English, a competent reader of English, and a competent speaker of English, that will help you to become a skillful English expert. So this is what is exactly the difference between a skilled one and the one who has learned it without any ability or without any power. So we are basically to discuss the 4 language skills which you can also see on the display. The first one is listening skill and the second one is reading skill. Now if you see on the slide, the 2 of them, this one listening and this one reading, both of them, they are your receptive skills. Now once you are listening to someone, what exactly you are doing? You are actually receiving the information from your ears. Now this information is coming to you and you are trying to absorb that information and you are trying to understand that information. Now once you are reading from newspaper, once you are reading from news channel, you are reading your text message, what exactly you are doing? You are actually again receiving the information. Now this information is coming to you and you are actually trying to receive the information, you are actually trying to understand that information and trying to interpret that into your own understanding. Then both of these receptive, so both of them, they become your receptive skills that we are going to focus on. The good your listening is going to be, the good your speaking is going to be. The good your reading is going to be, the good your writing is going to be. So all of them, they are actually interconnected with one another, and you will see that how you can work on all these skills to make yourself one good communicator of English. You have then speaking and then you have writing. Now this speaking and this writing are your productive skills, because once you are speaking something, you are actually producing the information from your mouth, from your vocals. Once you are writing something, you are producing the information on the piece of paper, or maybe you are typing on the computer, so you are also doing it with your hand, and your brain stimuli is also involved there. So this is how this writing and this speaking, both of them, they are your productive skills, because you are producing the information for the next person. What were the listening and reading? They were your receptive skills, because you were receiving the information. Your speaking and your writing, they are your productive skills, because you are actually producing the information. Remember the thumb rule. The good your receptive skills are going to be, the very good your productive skills would be. So you are going to concentrate first on your listening and your reading, so that your speaking and your writing are going to improve at the same time. Once you are going to focus on your receptive skills, only then you can produce the good productive results. Now, if we check the communication frequency on the board, the first thing that you see is listening. It goes here. Then you have your reading. Then you have your writing, and then you have your speaking. Now see the percentage of listening, that's 32%, reading is 19%, writing is 23%, and speaking is 26%. So in other words, it means that the level of, or the percentage of your listening is the highest once you are going to talk about the communication frequency. So in other words, it means that you are supposed to concentrate on the first basic skill, that is your listening skill. The good listener you would be, the active participant, the active speaker, the active writer, and the active reader you would be. So this is going to be, and this is going to participate, and this is going to involve and result in becoming one good communicator for others. Now, as I said in the beginning, that we are going to also discuss the communication types. Now, basically, there are two communication types that we will concentrate on, and we will thoroughly study, and we will try to differentiate between two of them, and we will also see the similarities between two of them. Now, there is one thing that is verbal, and there is one thing that is non-verbal. Now, let's underline them. One is verbal, and the other one is non-verbal communication. You communicate verbally and you communicate non-verbally. Now, let me explain it to you through one example quickly. I'm saying goodbye. I'm saying hello. Now, what I am trying to do? I am trying to accompany my spoken communication with my non-verbal behavior. Now, this hand movement has something to do with my non-verbal behavior. If I am not speaking and I would simply say, what would you understand? Yes, I am saying hello, or sometimes I am saying goodbye. Okay, if I say good to go, okay. So sometimes you ask me, how are you doing? And I say, it means that I am doing good, or I am doing great. So this is how your communication has this ability of verbal communication, like the sounds which you are producing from your throat, from your voice, from using your voice modulation, and sometimes your non-verbal behavior. That has something to do with your facial expressions, that has something to do with the way you are sitting, the way you are standing, that is something to do with your behavior. So these are two categories that we will discuss in detail. Now, if you see, verbal communication has something to do with words and voice modulation. Now, these words can be spoken as well as these words can be written, because this thing that has something to do with your verbal communication. If I say that the thing has been communicated to me verbally, in other words, it means that I have seen that, maybe I have seen that, or maybe I have heard that. Okay, so this is how you are going to see that how words can be written as well as spoken, and it will become your verbal communication behavior. The second thing is your voice modulation, the way you use your voice to communicate with the next person. If you have a low voice, if you have a loud voice, that's going to really make a lot of difference. Non-verbal communication basically has something to do with your posture, your movements, the way you are standing, your standing position. If you are standing in a very dull and a lazy posture, that's going to tell others that you are tired, or maybe you are not interested, or maybe that's going to give them the cold rejection. And if you are standing active and with your hands towards outside, people will see that how your movements are very welcoming for them. Then your gestures, your facial expressions, your eye contact, thought, your hair, your everything that is going to communicate messages to your receivers. So make sure once you are communicating with the next person, along with your verbal communication, you also take care of your non-verbal behavior. And I will tell you the tips that how you can work on your non-verbal behavior, how you can, make your non-verbal communication plus your verbal communication more active and interactive for your receivers. Now there are some styles of communication, like first one is aggressive communication, the second one is submissive, and third one is assertive. Now aggressive, once you are aggressive, like mostly the boss in the companies are, like your supervisor or your boss tells you to do something quickly. Now this is what? This is his aggression that he is trying to portray. Like he is kind of giving you the order of doing something. And you say, okay boss, I'm going to do it. This is your submissive behavior. Now in our everyday life, in our common routine, every day you come across different kinds of examples. Even at home you would see that how your mother is telling you to wash these dishes in the kitchen, and you say, okay mom, I'm going to do that right now. So this is your submissive behavior, and that's your aggressive behavior of your mom. The third one is your assertive behavior, that is more mediocre or more moderate in tone, which can be applied the way I'm speaking right now. Now how do we communicate? We can communicate through written or visual, and we can also communicate through verbal and non-verbal. Now our main focus in this semester is going to be, once we will talk about the written and visual. Your written and visual would carry assignments, your CVs, your applications, and your reports that you would be making in the semester. And then verbal and non-verbal, which would carry your interview sessions, your presentations, and your meetings. I will tell you that how you are supposed to take care of your verbal and non-verbal behavior once you are going for the interview. I will tell you that how you are supposed to take care of your verbal and non-verbal behavior once you are going for the presentations. And I will tell you that how you are supposed to behave in the meetings and how you are supposed to take care of this verbal and non-verbal expression in the meetings. So this is what is going to be the target of the semester. Now moving on, let's quickly see that what communication cycle basically goes through and what steps basically it follows. Now if you see on the slide, the first thing is, as I told you earlier, that the first thing that is required in the communication process is sender. Like in the current situation, I am the sender of the message and I am trying to send message to you. Now the sender of the message is sending message to the receiver, and the sender is the person, the one who is sending the message or the source of information. Now we will keep on elaborating the details for each one of them. The second one is receiver, and now in the current situation you are the receiver, and the receiver is the person who receives the message. Now what is in common? That they are sharing this message. Now message is being exchanged between the sender and the receiver. Now this is your message. The message basically is the subject matter of communication. It may contain facts, ideas, feelings, and thoughts. So this is how you explain the message that is being communicated from the sender to the receiver. Now channel can be anyone in any kind of communication. It can be verbal or it can be non-verbal. As I told you earlier that verbal and non-verbal behaviors, they communicate. So in the current situation, I am communicating verbally, and maybe sometimes I am making use of my hands to tell you about different things, like the way I say this is sender, this is receiver. So this is what that my verbal behavior is accompanied with my non-verbal behavior to make sure that you understand each and everything in a very clear way. So sometimes in our daily life, so you point towards the door, you say I want to go out, or I want a glass of water. So your hand movements, and you're pointing towards things, you're looking at something, you are looking for your wristwatch, you are looking for time, you are sitting in a very hot and stuffy room, and you are very uncomfortable. So these kind of things, they make a lot of difference. Like verbal and non-verbal can be your channels of communication that communicate your message very clearly to the next person. The feedback is receiver's response or reaction or reply to the message which is directly towards the sender. Now, your communication cycle, basically the first thing is the sender, that is the person who is the source of information. The second thing is the receiver, the one who is receiving the message or who receives the message and who tries to interpret that. The third one is the message, that is the subject matter of the communication. It basically conveys the feelings, the ideas, and the emotions. The fourth one is the channel. It can be verbal verbal and can be non-verbal. And the fifth one is the feedback, that has something to do with the response or reply of the receiver to the sender. Your cycle would complete if the receiver is going to provide the feedback to the sender. If the receiver fails to provide feedback to the sender, sometimes it will become very difficult for the sender to understand that how receiver has understood or interpreted his or her message. So moving on to the next slide, the communication model. As you can very well see on the slide, this is your sender, the one who is sending the message. Now this encoding has something to do with encoding. Something means that you are creating something in your mind. Now creating something, once you talk about the communication process, encode something has something to do with creating something or making something. Now you are encoding something in your mind and then you are conveying your thoughts to the receiver. Now those thoughts and those emotions or that information has to go through a proper channel. Now if you see, the second step is your channel. The receiver, that message will be decoded by the receiver. Now this decoding or this decoding has something to do with cracking down the thing. Now that thing that has been created or encoded is being decoded or being cracked down or being interpreted by the receiver. Here your communication cycle will complete. The sender will encode the message and he will send that message through a proper channel to the receiver. The receiver will receive the information through a proper channel and will try to decode the message. And here your cycle would complete. Now if you see this cycle, I've kind of tried to make one wheel for you where you can understand that how basically this communication cycle goes through and what kind of the process it follows. The first thing is your sender, as you can see on the board as well. Let me pick up the highlighter so that you don't have any confusion seeing that. This is your sender, the one who is encoding the message. Now your sender is basically encoding the message. It means, in other words, that he or she is kind of creating the message in his or her mind. He or she is doing what? He is encoding the message in her mind, and that message will be communicated to the receiver through a proper channel. Now that channel can be your verbal communication as well as your non-verbal communication. That one you will see also. The fourth step or the fourth thing in the whole cycle is your receiver, the one who is going to decode the message, and then that receiver, after receiving the information, will send a feedback to the sender, and here your cycle would complete. Now if you see in the middle, here is a noise and here are some barriers. Now what is this noise and what are these barriers? Between your whole cycle of communication, there can be some barriers and there can be some noises which can be the cause of misinterpretation of your messages. Like sometimes, to give you one example, and we are going to make sure that you are going to listen and you are going to get the information about these barriers and these noises in detail in the upcoming lectures. This noise and these barriers can be those things which can create confusion between the sender and the receiver, which can be one hurdle between for sending the message from sender to the receiver. So you will see that how these barriers can destroy the meaning of the message and how they can help the receiver cause the misinterpretations of the message. We are going to discuss them, like two people are talking in the classroom, or maybe two people are talking where a lot of people are running by, and there is a corridor and they are standing and they are trying to talk and there is a lot of noise. Now the sender is trying to tell the receiver that we have a class after that right now, and the receiver is not trying to understand that. In other words, it means that receiver is already so much occupied with the noises outside, or maybe there are noises around him, so that he cannot understand. These noises can be of two types. The first one is external noise and the second one is internal noise. Internal noise is something to do with your psychology. If your mind is already preoccupied with something, you won't understand what the next person is saying. And sometimes the external noises, as I said, that the noises that are around you, and they do not let you understand, or they do not let you hear the next message completely. Now let's quickly see that how this communication cycle basically moves on, and how we actually get this cycle completed. A message is being sent by the sender through gestures, sometimes through drawings, through facial expressions, through spoken or through written. Now this message will be sent by the sender. The message is being sent maybe sometimes through gestures, maybe through facial expressions, sometimes maybe you are making drawings, maybe through facial expressions, maybe you are speaking something that is a message, or maybe you are writing something, or maybe you are typing something on your mobile phone and you are sending it to your friend. Now, what would the receiver do? It will enter in the sensory world of the receiver, and all senses would be involved there. Your sense of sight, your sense of hearing, your sense of touch, your sense of smell, your sense of taste. All of your senses would be involved in your communication process once the receiver is going to receive the information. Now all your senses are involved in receiving the message. Like for example, to tell you one thing very smart, or to tell you one thing and to share with you a very interesting information, if one of your senses is not working actively, your other senses will become very active and very responsive. Like for example, you would have seen these people who cannot see, or maybe if you personally stand in a very dark room, and if you experience that the room is very dark and you cannot see anything, now what would happen to you? Your eyes would be wide open, however your ears would work more actively and efficiently as compared to your eyes, because your one sense has started working hyperactively as compared to the other one, because that was absent in this situation or in that situation. So all your senses, they automatically start working and try to respond to what is being said. Now what do? For example, your mother says, give me the glass of water, and all your senses are working. Your sense of sight, your sense of hearing, your sense of touch, your sense of smell, and your sense of hearing, all of your senses, they start automatically working once you are being or somebody tells you something to do, or somebody asks you something to do. Once the message is being entered in the sensory world of the receiver, basically stimuli, it picks up the message and it basically tries to collect down the message, or basically it picks up the message in the brain. Now this stimuli, it varies from person to person. It can be related to the person's abilities, like what kind of the abilities person has. It can be the cultural background, like what kind of the culture the person is coming from, maybe what kind of situation he is in, maybe he is drowsy, dizzy, daydreaming, he is not alert. All these situations that are something to do with your stimuli, they vary from person to person. Sometimes there are outside noises which does not allow you, or sometimes these outside noises do not allow you to listen to the next person carefully. Sometimes the facial expressions of the next person, like you are sitting in the classroom, the students are also sitting there, the teacher asks anyone a question, somebody is daydreaming, somebody is not alert, the facial expressions automatically convey this message. So you are going to make sure that once you are sitting and you are talking to someone and the sender is sending the message, you should be sitting in a very alert position so that they get to know that you are listening to them carefully. Sometimes your stimuli can get this double or dual meanings of the words. We will also discuss that what categories of the words are there. There are two categories. The first one is connotation, and the second one is denotation. Okay, let's forget about that. That makes it D-E-N-N-O-T-A-I-O-N. Now, connotation and denotation are the categories of the meanings of the words which actually convey the dual meanings. Now, denotation has basically something to do with the dictionary meaning of the word, and connotation, it conveys the multiple or the underneath or sometimes the dual meanings of the words. Like for example, if I say the word needle. Now this word needle has something to do with That's in the dictionary definition would automatically, or the denotative meaning of the word is that it's an instrument which is used to for, you know, stitching the clothes. And the connotative meaning, if I say that why are you needling me, it means that why are you pinching me. So the underneath meaning of the word, the exact word needle, would automatically change. Now moving on, the filtering process. Now once your stimuli has picked up the message, including your cultural background, your state of mind, your internal noises, your facial expressions and everything, basically your filtering process would begin here. That is through contents, experiences, knowledge, emotions and cultural backgrounds that you are coming from. So you would filter the message accordingly. You would filter down the message according to your understanding and your situation. The next step would be that you are going to give the message response to the sender. Now this message response can be in the form of words, that is your verbal expression that you are going to take care of, and that can be through gestures, and that can be also through your physical actions and your physical behavior. Now message response is being coming from the receiver, and then the cycle is being repeated. How the cycle is being repeated? Because the sender is sending the message to the receiver is taking that message and using all his senses, takes that message into his or her stimuli. Your mind starts working, and then the filtering process that has something to do with decoding of the message, and then you give a message response, maybe through your facial expressions, maybe through your verbal behavior, maybe that can be verbal or that can be non-verbal. You would give your response to the sender, and sender would reply back to you. You would reply back to the sender will reply back to you. So this channel is going to go on and on and on, and this cycle will go on, and cycle is repeated, and this is what you call communication. So this is, I hope that you have learned about the communication thing very clearly and very carefully. Now if you see on the slide, this is your sender, the one who is encoding the message. The message is being transmitted through the external noises. Now see, the idea or the information is being, there are some internal noises within the mind of this person, that what exactly I am supposed to tell this person, what exactly I am not supposed to tell this person, what your psychology allows you to share with that person and what your psychology doesn't allow you to share with that person. Then this person is your receiver, the one who is going to decode the message. The message is being received and the message is being decoded. Now there are some internal and semantic noises that when we which are there. Not all the people think alike, not all the people understand alike. Now there are some semantic noises. This semantics has something to do with study of the sentences. Maybe he or she would interpret that sentence differently in different situations. Maybe he or she can ask the question from the sender, do you mean this, do you mean that, and this is how they are going to, this cycle is going to, you know, go on and on and on and on. So this is how the sender will encode the message and then transmit that message through the external noises, and then the receiver will decode the message while after receiving, and then through the internal and semantic noises. So this is basically the structure of your communication. Now moving on to the next slide. Communication, as I told you earlier, this is last step of the last stage of our today's lecture, and we will thoroughly discuss that how do we communicate in the workplace, as inshallah all of you would be going into the practical lives and you should know that how you are actually supposed to convey on the workplace, and there are some people whom you are supposed to communicate with. So the dictionary definition of the workplace basically defines a workplace as a place such as an office or a factory where people are employed. So that's the combination of people coming from maybe different backgrounds, maybe different experiences, where they get together to work on something that is one scope or one objective of working for their whole organization. Like one university is, the main purpose of one university is to give you know, this information or this understanding or this message to their students, that to make and create good students for their future. So every organization, they have their own objectives and they have their own goals. The dictionary definition basically defines a workplace as a place where any office or any factory where people are employed. Now, why do we communicate in our workplace? We communicate basically for networking. Sometimes we make contact, sometimes we use internet for communication, sometimes we exchange business cards, we have colleagues with whom we are communicating, we meet and greet people on the way, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, Allah hafiz. So this meeting, greeting, thank you, sorry. So these all things, then people with common interest, they become friends, and then they start communicating and, you know, sharing their thoughts. There are communities being developed for people, like community for healthcare, community for services and all these. Then you network with people for your success. You try to meet those people who are of your area and who could be of the benefit for you in the future. You network for making connections, for your relationships, for your careers, and finding out the opportunities in life. So you see, communication basically is a process. Once you talk about the practical business life, communication basically is a process which will help you grow and go further and become one good, very good citizen of your country. So what is our workplace? That one we are going to discuss. Administrative office, it can be your accounting office, it can be your human resources office, it can be a bookstore, it can be a maintaining office, it can be engineering office, it can be general services, it can be a clinic, it can be registrar, security guard office, student services, discipline office, campus ministry office, or any other that you see, or any kind of the organization in which you have been, or inshallah you will be employed in the future. So basically, since your course has something to do with the business, so we will make sure that everything that we do in this semester is going to, or we are going to, stick to the business scenario, and we are going to stick to the business communication. So that's why I'm, kind of trying to share with you the experience of communicating in the workplace. Now, communication, if you see, as we have already discussed earlier, so we correlate that definition with the workplace definition. The exchange of thoughts, messages, or information as by speech, signals, writing, and behavior. This is the art and technique of using words effectively to impart information or ideas. This is acceptable communication. It differs from company to company, but many aspects are universal. So at workplace or in business, some of the aspects, they are very universal and they are understood. You are supposed to take orders from your boss. You are not supposed to give him orders. This is one very universal understanding. You are supposed to take tasks from your assistants. You are not supposed to take orders from them. So this is one another universal understanding. Every organization, they have got their own scenario and they have got their own structure, but the universalism is that all the organizations, they have one hierarchy that is being followed, like standing from the senior to the junior, from the senior most to the junior most. Now, there are some tips that can help us communicate effectively in the workplace. The first tip is to listen carefully. Now, as I told you that listening is the 32% of our whole or everyday communication. Now, this listening, when you listen to others attentively, it makes them feel good. Now, in the current situation, I'm sure if you are listening to me very carefully, I will be very happy that you are listening to my efforts that I am putting in very efficiently and very, attentively. It will also makes for a deeper and more positive connection with the others. Now, there are two people who are talking to each other. One is discussing a very serious matter with the next one, and the next person, he or she is, continuously playing with their cell phones, and sometimes, they are looking here and there. They seem not interested in the talk the next person is saying. What would the next person feel? They would automatically feel the next person is not interested, or they won't feel very good because they had been sharing this very important thing with them, and sometimes they feel lethargic with what the next person is doing with them. So if you are not paying attention to the next person, to the next person's thoughts, sometimes the next person, they get annoyed. In turn, you form an understanding and they will listen to you once it's your turn to speak. But if you are sitting in a very right posture and you are listening to them very carefully, what will happen to you the next time? For the next time, once you will be talking to them, they would automatically listen to you very carefully. Poor listening happens often and results in misunderstandings and miscommunications. So make sure that poor listeners, once they are trying to avoid the communication that is taking place, sometimes it results in the misunderstandings and miscommunications between the two people. So your main purpose once you are sitting in the workplace, now if you take the example of the workplace where you are working and your boss calls you in and he asks you to do this task, and you are busy watching his table, that what exactly he has placed on his table, or you are busy watching here and there. Now your boss is going to fire you, I bet you for that. Why? Because your boss needs your attention. Now this attention is very important, because your attention of your ears while you are listening to that person. Now for listening, your main purpose should be that you have to have this intention of listening to the next person. You go into your boss's room, you go with your writing pad and you go with your pen and say, yes sir, please give me what task do I have to do. So this is your intention of doing something, okay? Ask yourself what your intention is before starting a project, going to a meeting or speaking to someone. So this will help you improve your communication or improve your workplace communication with people. You can also ask others what their intentions are in similar situations. So you can also ask others what exactly their intentions are in the similar situations. Knowing your intention will help you be more conscious of what you are doing or saying. So this intention thing is really very important, and your main purpose should be to have and focus on the intention of the word, which means you'll be able to be more effective and skillful. So that is going to make you more effective and look skillful in front of the others. So this intention is very important when you are talking to someone or when you are working at the workplace. Now another tip that can be taken care of once you are trying to talk to the next person is to speak clearly. Now once you are trying to talk to the next person in the workplace, in the practical life, speak clearly to the next person. That doesn't have something to do with speaking clearly from your throat. That has also something to do with taking the care of the vocabulary usage or the sentence collection or the sentence formulation or the kind of the message that you are trying to communicate to the next person. To do so, take a deep breath and remain positive when talking to people. Try to cut out these words like these make it difficult for people to understand what you are trying to communicate. So sometimes these kind of gaps in your language can be a problem for communicating with the next person, as I am doing it right now also. Try to keep your voice steady and don't talk too quickly or too quietly. Like you should not rush quickly, that you are supposed to wrap up your sentence quickly, and sometimes you are too quiet to answer to the next person. Be confident in what you are saying and others will feel your confidence too. So this speaking clearly, taking deep breath and then talking to the person is going to help you see that how you can look confident to the others. Another thing that you can also keep in mind is to be genuine. Now, how you can be genuine? Being genuine can include speaking honestly, expressing excitement and sadness when you feel like it, and being friendly. Now, this is what is your genuine. When you are angry, you should show your anger. When you are happy, you should show your happiness. If you are going to hide that, that's not something that is genuine, because that's not something that is like you. So be like yourself and try to represent what you are. There is nothing wrong with saying no, I don't really agree with that, or I think you have changed my mind. However, don't be rude. I was just being honest is not a good excuse for being harsh. Okay, so these kind of sentences, don't make yourself very rude for the others. You can make or you can take help of these sentences that I've just narrated for you. Sometimes you can say, I was just being honest. Was you are trying to explain facts. No, I don't really agree with that. I think you have changed my mind. So but do not try to jump onto the conclusions quickly. Being genuine builds your confidence. That is also going to build your confidence and look good in front of the receivers. Another tip is to be receptive. Now you are receiving the information and you are being receptive. Be open to what others are saying or offering. So you are being open for, or you are being welcoming for the others. Often people restrict the flow of ideas and communication because they are making too many assumptions or are being too quick to judge and criticize. So you should be open enough to receive that criticism that people are sending. That can be a negative criticism or that can be a positive criticism. But your main purpose is going to be that you are going to be receptive and be open to all the things that the people are telling you. Now, if you see on the slide, there is a communication flow in the workplace. Like there you see there is one arrow going up, that's the upward communication. One arrow is going down, that is the downward communication. One arrow is going straight, that's kind of, straight communication that goes on between the peers. Now, downward communication, upward communication, lateral communication, and a grapevine communication are the varieties of communication that happen in the workplace situation or in the workplace communication. That one we are going to discuss now. Downward workplace communication is, in other words, also known as enabling. Now, let's first focus on the downward communication in the workplace and a couple of its important characteristics. It basically is a workplace communication between a manager explaining a task to an employee. So that's kind of giving an order to an employee that this is what you are supposed to do and submit it to me by the end of the day. A customer gives an order to a supplier, okay? So this is also one kind of an order being sent from the customer to the supplier. Shareholders instruct management. So all of them, the basic thing in all of them is that all of them they are. The basic thing in all of them is that they are the quality that they are sharing is of giving the orders. So the hierarchy is that the information is coming from up to down. So this is what you call downward communication. And as information moves downward in the workplace, it grows increasingly in the detail. Like for example, make a budget report. Make a budget report for the month to include the following. Make sure the report includes the exact amount and the quantity. So this is how the downward communication, it keeps on moving on and on and on. All organization of more than one person must use workplace communication in one way or the other. One person must give another instructions before any activity can occur. So basically your downward communication has something to do with taking the orders from the top, and the people sitting on the lower management are supposed to do all those tasks on their own. So this activity will occur only when the orders are being taken place in a good manner. At each stage in the downward flow of communication, people in the organization receive information to help them do their jobs. So, receiving this has something to do with the receptive skill, because the people below, like the assistants, like the managers who are taking orders from their bosses, are actually receiving the information. So, the more elaborated and more explained that information is going to be, that is going to be understandable by the receivers, and the receivers will do their tasks more efficiently. So in the life, if you are going to become boss one day, inshallah, you are supposed to take care of only one thing, that you are going to provide the complete information if you are sitting on the higher management. And at each stage, the information becomes less abstract, more specific, and more detailed. So these vagueness would disappear if you are providing them the complete information. You would be more specific and more detailed as to take your tasks from your team. Now the next type is upward communication, that is compliance. The first one was enabling, the second one is compliance. Second major flow of communication is upward communication from employee to the supervisor, supervisor to the department head. Let's underline them. Underline head, department head to the vice president, and so on. So there is a manager there is an employee who is talking to the supervisor, maybe a laborer who is talking to the supervisor, supervisor is talking to the department head, the department head is talking to the vice president, and so on and so on and so on. So moving from the lowermost management to the top management, this is what you call the upward communication, which goes on up and up and up. So that would be a kind of a submissive communication, in other words. The next type is lateral communication, which is a kind of a coordination. Now think of information that flows back and forth between you and your peers. Whether you are a frontline worker, a manager, or a member of a board directors, this is lateral communication. Now those people who are working in the same capacity, in the same organization as you are working in, they will become your peers. Like for example, if you are working in one organization as a manager and there is another manager who is working in the same capacity in the same organization, two of you are peers and you are sharing your information, and your information will keep on talking to each other. This is what you call coordination. You do not understand one task, you ask the other person for help. Since both of you belong to one category and you belong to one particular task and particular scenario, so this will automatically become coordination between two of you. There are some characteristics first of coordinators. First, no supervisors, subordinate relationships exists here. It's strictly a case of two people with roughly equal amounts of power and prestige. So nobody is senior in this situation. That makes this form of communication voluntary, and there is no discrimination in that. Yes, the boss may tell us to communicate with each other, but unless we both want to do it, we are not going to exchange much information of value. But there are situations where boss is going to tell you that you are going to share that information with that person. So sometimes there are people who resist in talking to the other one, but you are good people, and I hope that you are going to help your colleagues once you are going to go into the practical life. The last type of the communication type that we are going to discuss is the grapevine, that is filling the gaps. Now there is one category other than upward management, downward management, and then lateral management. There is another category that is grapevine management. Now listen to this talk carefully. It's Tuesday morning and John down the hall just emptied out his desk and left the building, apparently for good. Everyone wants an answer to the question, why? If there is no official answer, and sometimes even if there is one, the people around him begin speculating about possible reasons. This is a communication channel that no one owns and no one controls. And while we might complain about gossips and busybodies, we all use it sooner or later. So there is one kind of a gossip box, chatter box in every organization. Like this question of why should be answered to everyone, that is, filling the gaps of the queries coming in the minds of different people working in the one organization. This grapevine kind of structure has got a function. Despite its many faults, though the grapevine does not have a place, a function in all organizations, it fills in gaps left behind by conventional and official communication. So it has got, or it has to be there to fill the gaps between different organizations. So this grapevine communication is really very important. So communication flow, just to wrap it up, downward communication or enabling communication that moves instructions and other directive information down or through a hierarchy. Upward communication or a compliance means communication that provides feedback to the people who originate downward communication. Lateral or coordinating communication that moves between peers to maintain or improve operational efficiency. The grapevine communication, which fills in gaps in official communication and provides answers to unaddressed questions. So if you are being asked for the definition of each of them, remember that you read and you cram these definitions by heart. I hope that you have understood the difference between downward, upward, lateral and grapevine communication thoroughly, so that you can understand these definitions clearly. So why is effective communication essential in the workplace? We are constantly bombarded by it. It may be in the form of a spoken or written words, pictures, gestures, symbols, and for interesting few telepathic message for a variety of intriguing sources. But in the workplace, effective communication is essential to our progress and well-being. So the more efficiently and effectively you are going to listen to the next person, the more sympathetic you are going to be with them, the more attentive you are going to be for them, your intention, your attention, your the way you would look at them, your verbal, your non-verbal behavior, all of them, they are going to make a lot of difference once you are sitting on your workplace. So what is your communicating style? Good communication skills require a high level of self-awareness. You shall be aware of how you look to others and how you are responding to others. Understanding your personal style of communication will go a long way toward helping you to create good and lasting impressions on others. So you should be aware of the way you are standing, the way you are listening to the people, the way you are reacting to their conversations. The way you are moving in your workplace is going to make a lot of difference for you. There are three basic communication styles. The first one is aggressive, the second one is passive, and the third one is assertive. That one we have also discussed in the previous slides. Now that brings us to the end of today's lecture. There are some details that you are supposed to remember to become one good and efficient verbal and non-verbal communicator. You are supposed to see through today's lecture we have learned that you are supposed to be calm and collected all the times. You are supposed to be loud enough to be heard by everyone. You are supposed to use those words which are accurate in diction, and you are supposed to pronounce words correctly. Speak slowly and make use of pauses to stress important ideas. We will keep on moving on, and we will keep on seeing that how you can improve your verbal and non-verbal behavior in your workplace communication, especially once you are a BBA student. I'm sure that you are going to go into the business and practical life. So try to see that how you can work on your verbal and non-verbal behavior to impress your audiences, to take in the clients and customers, and flourish your own business. With that, here is a list of references from where the information was being taken. I hope you have understood about the communication cycle, the communication process, the types of communication that we have discussed, verbal and non-verbal communication. There are channels, that one we have also discussed in today's lecture. I will make sure to give you a quick recap of what we have done today in our next lecture. With that, I wish you a very happy day, and wish you very happy communication skills in life. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.